I'm Austin. I'm Austin.
And I'm Cloud.
And this is We Watch Spookies.
Today's movie is Psycho. Psycho is a 1960 psychological horror film directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, John Gavin, Martin Balsam, John McIntyre, and Janet Leigh. How about a plot synopsis?
So an office worker and a guy living in, San Francisco? Or was it Los Angeles? Doesn't matter. Some dude are getting hit, they're hooking up and everything, and they're doing it secretly. And she wants to get married, but he doesn't want to involve her in his huge amounts of debt. So one day at work, her boss brings in this guy who's supposed to be spending like $40,000 in cash for a place. And so she takes that cash and runs, finds her way to the Bates Motel, is murdered, and then her sister, the boyfriend, and then a detective go looking for her to find out that Bates's mom is actually dead because he is his own mom.
Yeah, not in like the somehow we can make the genealogy of this work out in the like I'm my own grandpa kind of way, but
Yeah,
like,
none of that.
he did have a mom. He doesn't anymore.
No.
Except he does. In his mind. So that's a big speech by the psychiatrist there at the end. Like he just lays the whole thing out. It's a long scene.
It is long.
He just explains it. Which he just says like something about how, you know, like they brought in the psychologist or the psychiatrist to figure out what happened or to question him. And he comes out and it seems like what happened really is that Bates just told him everything.
That's what
and he's making all of this interpretation about like, oh, he has split personality and this and that, but it doesn't seem like it took a psychiatrist to get the information out of him. It just seems like, oh, well, he's the mom now, and he just came out with the whole thing.
Well, it feels like even though the psychiatrist, okay, so you have the guy tells the psychiatrist everything. Psychiatrist comes out, he spills the beans himself. But at the same time, we also have that little bit at the end where he's hearing his mom's voice in his head, but that's him talking to himself about, if I just sit here, they'll think I'm just some old lady. Like, what happens whenever they're like, yeah, you're going to jail for the rest of your life? And then she's like, okay, sitting here didn't do any good. Gotta. And it's like, well, what then?
According to the sequels, which don't count because they made them like they started making them in the 80s after Hitchcock was dead, so he couldn't stop them anymore. And like, so supposedly Norman did go to jail, or actually he didn't go to jail because he was found to be insane, so he went into psychiatric treatment instead, and then seems to have been cured, and so they let him out. But he's not cured. So
dun, dun, dun.
He did sort of go to jail, kind of, or he was confined for a time. But
for a time.
For a time in a world.
At a hotel.
A motel. With what do they keep calling them? Cabins?
Yeah.
They don't look like cabins.
No.
Now, I understand the history of the the roadside cabins and the motels and stuff in the early days of traveling by car. But his don't look like that. They're not freestanding. It looks like a strip of motels. What it actually looks like, because I'm sure that this is what they're referencing, is it looks like the motel that Cats in Courage the Cowardly Dog owns.
Yeah.
That they go to, and the spider runs down the endless front porch for a very long time. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have the house exactly, but otherwise it looks very much like the motel part of the Bates Motel.
Why is Courage the Cowardly Dog so good?
Well, I'm not sure. We should talk about it sometime in some detail, because I feel like there's a lot going on there. $40,000 in 1960 is about $347,000 today. So he's buying his little girl a real nice, or a fairly nice house for being married off away from him. Which we should talk about Mr. Texas Guy also, because he's like real
Texas.
Well, he's real
Texas-y.
Texas, but also he's real rapey. Kind of.
He is real rapey.
he's giving her looks. He's leaning on the desk. He's saying things that are not really appropriate.
I have
And
money.
He's it's like, just because you're Texas and just because you have money doesn't give you rights to be a creeper. And it doesn't turn into anything, because we never even see him again. And even though we hear his voice again, it's really just Marion imagining what might be going on back home, because she's having real like telltale heart syndrome.
Yeah.
At that particular time.
See, I hate those kinds of scenes though. Is she a telepath? Like, is she hearing a conversation that's, maybe
She's
not
hearing it in a lot of detail with a bunch of different people.
Yeah, like, stop doing that kind of stuff.
It's made more weird later, because we do hear Mrs. Bates in Norman's head at the end. And so there is this, like, we're hearing stuff in people's heads. It only ever happens with her and with him, though no one else ever thinks to themselves things that we hear. But I mean, I like the tension that it adds to the scene, although I'm not sure that you might not could do a lot of it with just looks. That maybe it is a little bit of narration in American Hustle. Like, you don't really have to have it. Like, I don't think it's damaging in this case the way that the narration in American Hustle is, but I think you could do a lot with just her looking guilty to herself.
Well, I want to know what's up with the cop.
Well, the cop suspects.
So okay. So
something. He has no idea what to expect, to suspect, but he suspects.
If he's I'm dumb.
He's a suspected inspector.
Yeah, if he's suspecting some stuff, I mean, he's not wrong, but he's got no grounds for it.
Not really. He just has.
What do you mean, not really? He's got, like, there's no one telling him anything other than her being weird.
Yeah, well, she is weird.
But then again,
it seems like he stops at first just because, there's this car on the side of the road, I should check that out. Because he is just driving by, and he drives by, and then seems like, oh wait, what's that? And then he backs up, and takes a look. But then she does seem guilty of something, or at least very worried about something, almost immediately. So she has given him some reason to suspect. He seems to give up, though, after a time. Like, that she imagines all of this stuff that happens at the car dealership after she leaves, but that doesn't really happen. That's in her head, unless she is a telepath, like you said. And it never comes back. He doesn't show up, like, with the private detective. The detective never mentions that he had a tip from the police that she was going this way. Yeah. He made it to that town because that's where the boyfriend lives. But other than that, they don't seem to have any other reason to believe that she's any particular place.
Well,
so it doesn't seem like he filed a report or followed up or anything. He never took his sunglasses off, which makes him more threatening because you can't see his eyes. So he's just this kind of like blank face of the man that, that someone is after, and he never becomes a person really. And so he's there looking in the window, and then he's there across the street suspecting things.
Well, I think that's kind of the problem I had with him, is he doesn't serve anything other than to build tension while she's trying to pay for a car in cash.
Yeah, which, there's nothing wrong with paying for a car in cash, I suppose, but it is a little suspicious when you're in a hurry and there's police waiting across the street.
Yeah, and the fact that the guy who's selling the used car didn't pay any attention or notice the police officer, even though
he paid a little attention. Like, it seems like he looks over there, but then he continues about the business anyway.
Well, like that's the problem is he looks, but then it's like it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like when they were filming it, he's like, "Hey, just look over here when you do this, and then you do this," and he's like, "Well, what am I looking at?" Well, you're looking at what's over here, and just do it. I had no idea it was a cop. Like, how was I supposed to know?
He's leaning on a police car, so $700 is about $6,000. So that's a fair amount of cash to be carrying around just to drop on a car.
Yeah,
with suitcases in the car, so it's not just like, hey, we're just gonna take a drive and just look around the car lot to this fine morning here. It's like you're carrying bags and you're nervous, and he does sell her the car, and then and the police like drive up and then kind of stand there, and she still just like drive. It. Yeah, she does, and then we never see him again.
Not having any of this.
And I don't think she never makes it out of state, does she?
No.
So,
well, I thought she was in. She started from Nevada and she made it to California.
No, she started in Arizona.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Arizona.
It says I can't remember. It says it at the beginning because there's these like title card things, which they tell us the place and the date. And the exact time, it's like 2:43 p.m. or something. And it's odd because it doesn't really matter exactly what time it is, except I guess that we're supposed to know it's a little early in the day.
Oh, for her there's the time I decided to order another souffle.
She didn't eat her sandwich.
I thought she took like 2 bites and then she like put it down because he was being really weird.
No. Not Norman's sandwich. She's on her lunch break, doing it in the hotel room with boyfriend guy.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, "You didn't eat your lunch," and then like the camera looks over it, and it's like a whole sandwich, like still wrapped in like plastic, and she didn't. It's like lunch was him, not the sandwich. Which you could, sandwiches have the benefit of being portable. So you can take that sandwich with you while you drive back to the office.
Drive with one hand, eat with the other. Unless you only have one hand, and then it's best you just use that hand to drive.
Yeah, it is.
For safety's sake.
It is. Don't just like hold a sandwich and let the car do what it wants. That's not going to help anybody. So the boss has an air-conditioned office, but the secretaries don't get the air conditioning.
Nope. They are plebs.
They are. The boss seems embarrassed about having a bottle at his desk because Mr. Texas is just real open about. He's already I read it as him already being drunk when he came in, like before he even mentioned the bottle. Like he felt like he was playing drunk to me. I don't know if he was, but then she goes in the office later, or just a little bit later, and he's holding a glass with like what looks like liquor in it, and so I guess there really was a bottle in the desk.
I wouldn't give the manager any issues with having a bottle.
1960. Like this is like Mad Men time. Like everybody's drunk all the time.
Well, like even today, I'm not gonna have a problem with someone having a bottle and taking a drink here or there. Like as long as they're not completely sloshed at work. Like I can't take you seriously right now. Like I can't.
But so you said the tension and the suspense. It felt to me that while the rest of it is good and interesting and like some clever dialogue and stuff, the like suspense in the like it's really getting to me kind of way doesn't really happen until the boyfriend and the sister come to the motel and are sneaking around. Like that's when it got really like, oh, now things are on edge.
Yeah.
Because we've already seen him kill 2 people by then. We know something creepy's going on with, like, we know that the mom is supposedly dead, according to the sheriff by then.
Well,
And-
whenever he stabs the detective, like, there wasn't really any suspense there
No.
because we knew what was going to happen.
There's that really great crane shot where it comes up the stairs and then turns around and comes around to the other side, where you would think you would be able to see where the crane was from where the shot started. That's really nice. But no, we expect he's going to go in there and get himself killed.
Oh, yeah.
Which he goes to his house. He doesn't have permission. He's
No.
not the police. It wasn't locked, but that just means it's not, like, it's a different charge if he's caught and charged. He didn't break and enter, he just entered. So I guess it's trespassing, right?
Yeah, I think it's
At least
trespassing.
As long as he doesn't steal anything. But
Evidence.
he's which is the weird thing about this, is that it does seem like,
I'm a detective, and I'm really abrasive.
well, not
And
that.
everybody is just going to hand me all the information I want until I make an accusation, and this guy over here has no idea what's going on. And then it's just like, yeah, your girl's missing. What? Well, why do you think the sister's here talking to you? Like, why is she missing? Well, she stole $40,000. Really? Okay. I kind of like where this is going. I just don't like the whole she's missing part. So what do you want to know? Have you talked to her? No. You look suspicious. All right, listen here, dude. If she stole $40,000, I wouldn't be here either.
Yeah.
We'd be gone.
Yeah, are you in on it? Why am I still working at the hardware store?
Yeah.
We've got $350,000 now.
But I have to know if this pesticide is painless. I don't want the bugs to suffer.
Yeah, which I don't know. Like, I can't remember if insects have some kind of, like, nervous system or something equivalent. If they could actually, like, if they would feel pain.
Well, they get on
In
my
any
nervous
case.
system.
But the other thing that was weird about the old lady in the hardware store is her voice sounds very much like, and her attitude about the not wanting to hurt, even bugs, is very much like Mrs. Bates in Norman's head at the end.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's supposed to be like Norman in a better Mrs. Bates disguise.
No.
But it was odd. It wasn't odd. It was interesting that there's a parallel or something there that I don't really know what we were supposed to take from it. It almost felt like when we got to the end that that if it was him, it's like in the Charlie's Angels TV show, there were some times where you would see Charlie in an episode. He would, like, the guy that did the voice would, like, be there in the episode. You wouldn't know it was him. And then at the end, when he's on the speaker with them for the last time, he would tell them that he was the guy that, like, handed them the pin at the magic show or did this thing. But then by that point, that's been 25 minutes ago in the episode, and you can't remember what he looked like because you weren't focusing on it, and this is TV in the 70s, and so you can't record things and you can't rewind, and you're probably never going to see this episode again, and so you can't go back and figure it out.
The suspense is killing.
And that's the kind of thing that it felt like, where it was just like, oh wait, were we supposed to, like, suspect? And I don't think so, but there's a
You had that little
there's a
tinge,
parallel.
like,
It's
in the
like,
back of your brain.
Was Charlie in the hardware store buying pesticide and we didn't know? Except Charlie is Norman. He's got a peephole. He's a peeper,
Yeah.
which doesn't come to very much because he doesn't actually peep on her doing really anything. Like, she takes her shirt off, but she's not naked. And then she puts a robe or something on, and then he puts the painting back over the peephole, and then he never peeps again. Which maybe that's, like, the moment when Mom takes over. And so then he's like, this is dirty, and then he goes back up to the house and fights with himself, and then comes back down and kills her as Mrs. Bates, which there's a lot here that is not coincidentally similar to other things that come after this. In particular, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which because this and Leatherface and actually Buffalo Bill are all sort of based on, inspired by the same real guy. But also, in a fictional context, in the first Friday the 13th movie, Jason doesn't kill anyone. It's not even there.
It's
his mom. And you're supposed to think that it's Jason the whole time. But it's not. It's his mom. And in this case, we're supposed to think that it's Mrs. Bates the whole time, because you can kind of see the silhouette. It looks like, there's a bonnet or something. It doesn't look like a man. And you don't get a clear look at the whole thing until the end in the fruit cellar. But it's really...
She's more dried up than those prunes
she's real dry. Which he stuffed her like a bird. Which, if it wasn't for his weird personality conflict thing that he has going on, he should have stuffed Marion, because he stuffs birds, and her name is Crane.
Yep.
And he makes comments about her bird-likeness while he creepily pets his stuffed birds. But because he didn't kill her, his mom killed her, and then he just has to cover it up, then he just has to cover it up, and he doesn't stuff her. Although he doesn't seem to kill his own birds to stuff either, according to the way he tells the story. Although he probably does, because no one else is around to do it.
Yeah.
But there is a very lovely room of death kind of feeling to the parlor. When we first see it, she kind of looks around, and we have all these close-up shots of, like, there's a moose head and a bird head and an owl, and there's like lots of dead hanging on the wall.
Anytime I see like stuffed animals or anything like that, I don't immediately think of death or anything like that. I think of like sportsmen, because like I, like some of the listeners who frequent us may know, I grew up in the middle of the country, a whole bunch of woods, and hunting was just a very common occurrence. So when I would see stuff like that, I would always think of like, oh, well, he might not be a hunter, but maybe someone in his family was. And then he just talks about how like he does like the taxidermy stuff because that's, his thing. So it's like, oh, okay. Maybe he had family that did it. And it's just like, no, he pretty much, he had like a stepdad, and then he murdered his mom and his stepdad kind of thing because jealousy. And then his mom took over his head because he's damaged. So,
well, according to the psychiatrist, he was never quite right to start out with. I don't know how he figured that out in one examination, but
yeah.
It's probably true. You don't just like take on your dead mom's personality after you murder them if there wasn't already something a little shaky. Was it his, like, did she marry the dude, or was he just a dude who, like, was he just hanging around?
See,
I don't know if they made it far enough to get married or not.
See, I thought she got married. Like, from the way that the sheriff was telling it, it sounded like she did get married.
Kind of seems like. I mean, he talked her into building the motel.
Yeah.
According to Norman, anyway. And that is a real thing that happened to lots of businesses, lots of places. Because this is in 1960, so this is, 4 years after the signing of the Interstate Highway Act. And so there's been a fair amount of construction by this point. There's still a lot to go, and some things from the original plan weren't finished until like the early 90s, but a lot of the main stuff wasn't even finished until like the early mid 70s. So there's still a lot to go, but there was a lot built already by this time in the first 4 years. And so if you were on a US highway, which would have been the equivalent of the interstate at the time before the interstates were built, and then suddenly the interstate is built and it's several miles away, now your thing is dead. And in some cases, entire towns are dead. Yeah. And it's
they're dead.
Like it was bad. It happened to lots of places, and it must have happened fairly recently though in his case, because he's still managing to keep the lights on and everything with seemingly like a guest maybe every couple of weeks, if that. And
well, like based off of his living style, I wonder if how much money he's actually having to pay out.
I don't know. I mean, if they own the land, or if they own the motel, so they don't have to like pay on that, there's still got to be like taxes or something. And she died 10 years ago, so he's been running it by himself for 10 years, which the entire time of which is not like that's too early for the highway to have moved.
Yeah.
So it's only been the last few years that would have been true. So they would have been making money before. It does seem like he says his dad died and they he left him some money, and so like his mom never had to work or anything. But it seems like the implication is that the new guy came around and talked her into building the motel and spent all the money. But then they were running the motel, and if it was successful, although 12 rooms is not a super ton.
No.
So
no, I think a super ton is about 3,000 pounds. Just a little bit more than a normal ton.
Sheets getting damp for no reason.
I mean, like, well, I can understand, like,
I guess there's a swamp right there.
Yeah, like you have like ventilation and moisture,
Ventilation.
you know, maybe a little bit of dust. You know, I can understand needing to go in and clean up from time to time. But I would say there would be a few rooms that I would like constantly keep clean just in case.
Yeah, in case someone happens by, but you're probably never gonna have like all 12 of them full.
Exactly, and then like I would not rotate as frequently as he does, because I feel like that would just be wasting cleaning. Because then you can't do anything for free. If you're washing something, that means you're using water,
washing sheets,
and that means that
that
you're using water. And that's money. So like you just kind of get to that point, and I'm like, okay, well,
maybe he's not. Maybe he just like hangs them outside to air out or something from
by the
time
swamp.
to time. But yeah, by the swamp.
Get that swamp.
Well, he's not in his right mind. So
get out of my swamp.
Yeah,
this is my swamp.
now the
There is donkey.
Now of course I'm sort of avoiding talking about two particular moments because they're the ones that have already been talked to death by everybody on Earth that's ever talked about a movie, which is the shower scene and the car going into the swamp. But because I don't know what we can possibly say about the shower scene. That
she was stabbed to death in the shower. It's what is this? The first movie we ever get to see a toilet flush.
Is that part true?
I think so.
I think there is. Yeah, I mean, if it's for sure unusual.
But I okay, so this is like the second time I've watched this movie. The first time I watched it was years ago, and I had totally forgot like everything about the movie except for like the super important plot points. And then I remember reading some stuff about like, oh, you have Hitchcock and he's making stuff and this is how he did certain things. And I remember reading something, and I'm going to give some vague detail, but the highlight was supposed to be the actress who was the actress for like the first half of the movie. But then it was like, oh yeah, well, she's only in it for like the first 10 minutes. And then I'm like, how is this she's in it for 48 minutes.
Yeah.
Like she starts the movie off, and then she doesn't.
She's in about half. It's a bit of or a little under half. It's a bit of a misremembering.
Yeah.
It is true that who we think the main character is, suddenly dies partway through the movie, and the movie continues on. You know, sort of like a car accident happens, and during a car chase, and we were following the car chase, and now we follow the people that just got their car hit as the car chase passes by. It's a little like that, but it's not so much like that it's right away.
Well, it's not me remembering. It was me reading stuff about.
No, not you. I mean the like collective cultural memory misremembrance.
Yeah. And like some of this other stuff, and like when it came to the shower scene with her being murdered, I didn't really care. You know, I thought it was an interesting kind of look for something like that in the 60s. What's supposed to be so special about pushing the car in the swamp?
Well, the thing about the pushing the car in the swamp is that there's been all of this setup of that we're following Marion, but also she's bad too. She stole the money, and now she's running away, and she's lied to the police, and she's lied to Norman. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she should get killed, but she's not clean. She's not a regular, what we would think of now as a regular character in a slasher movie. This is sort of the first slasher movie. It's credited as being such, which we discussed the later things that are a little closer to the modern version of it in I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode last year. But where it's just somebody crazy with some weird thing about them is just going about murdering people, and they have no deserving of it at all.
Yeah.
And or in some cases they have less than it should be. In the Elm Street movies, the kids didn't do anything. Their parents did something, but the kids are the ones getting murdered by Freddy. So it's really unfair. But there's this turn suddenly where now Norman Bates becomes the main character of the movie. Janet Leigh's character is dead. She's gone. And now we're following Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. And we know that he's crazy. We know that he just we don't know that he killed her. We think that he's cleaning up his mother's mess. And he pushes the car. He carefully mops everything up, and he loads her in the car, and he drives out to the swamp, and he pushes it in, and there's 3 or 4 times where we see the car sinking, and then the camera cuts back to him, and we see him kind of satisfied that he did a good job. And so we also kind of feel like, well, his mother's really hard on him, so he did a good job. Maybe she'll be a little less hard on him, or at least she won't have this to yell at him about. And then it stops sinking. And a lot of people talk about having this moment of sympathy, that they feel bad suddenly, surprisingly to them. They don't know that it's coming. They're not trying to feel this way. Just suddenly they feel bad for Norman because he suddenly, now maybe he's going to get caught. And there's this tension in people, this conflict in people, where there's this guy that's doing something obviously bad, either having murdered somebody or covering up a murder for somebody, and his plan is foiled. And then it continues to sink after a moment, and then people are relieved. And it's this diabolical Hitchcock thing that happens to people where you feel bad for the bad guys. And it doesn't really happen to me. There is a tension in it, because now there's what's going to happen now? He thought that he was going to, because you think about how is he going to do anything now? It's mostly sunk. He can't drive it back out and try to hide it somewhere else. He doesn't have a tow truck or a crane or anything. And he can't add more. He's just stuck. What is he going to do now if it doesn't sink any further than that? And is it going to turn into rope or something, where there's this thing that's nearby that's the evidence of the crime, and then the police or detectives or somebody show up? It could turn into a whole different movie. And so there is an interesting tension to it. I never had the sympathy thing that many people report to having.
I always thinking of it as, ooh, that didn't work out for you there, huh?
Yeah. So there's many ways to react, or at least a couple of ways to react to it.
Because I can't say, I don't like looking at certain things as much as it's sympathy or looking at it with a sense of emotion that might attach you or disattach you from a character or a situation. Nothing like that. I like to think of certain things as how creative, or if I was in that situation, what would I do? And then if I'm not in the situation, but I'm there watching somebody do it, I almost feel would I want to help him? It's hey, bro, I'm here to help you clean up this mess. Or am I supposed to stand over there and then be the peanut gallery? Am I I want to say I'm trying to take away more of an entertainment value compared to like an emotional standpoint, regardless of the direction. And part of me feels like kind of laughing at him because he had this plan in motion and it looked like it was going to go good, and then it just stopped on him. And then, just wanted to stand over in the back, just snickering at him. You failed. And I could be wrong. I am pretty sure I'm wrong. But I could have swore that Norman was still in the office when the lady was looking out the window and saw his mom walking by the window or whatever.
Well, she doesn't really walk. There's just kind of like a vague silhouette. There's a lot of times when people are like, there's something in the window. And like I look and I'm like, I can't really see anything in the window. But
wait, I may be thinking of something else.
But I think he leaves her sitting in a chair by the window.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when she's not in the fruit cellar.
They're getting suspicious. Well, I really don't know. Like,
I guess the thing that I do have to say about the shower scene is it's not as violent as you think it is.
Nope.
There's very little that you actually see. Sure, you see some blood going down the drain, but you never. The killing of the detective later is actually much more visually violent. You actually see blood squirt out of him and stuff in a way that you don't when Marion is killed. You never actually see a knife impact into her. You see right up to it, and then it cuts away. And the intensity of it is built up by the quick cutting and the music in particular, the famous Psycho music, which we're not going to play. But but it has this effect, and the memory people have of it is that you see her get stabbed to death. In the same way that people remember seeing the guy's arm get chainsawed off in the motel room in Scarface, which you don't see. It happens off the edge of the screen, and you hear things, and you watch Tony Montana react to seeing it happen, and some like blood flies onto his face from off screen, but you never see any actual cutting. But that's the way you remember it because it's effective in building that illusion the way that it's supposed to be. And so unless you're conscious of it and you're looking at it closely, it has the effect that it's supposed to have. It does seem to me that there's no reason for this to be rated R.
No.
And it's not because, back then it was really controversial and violent. Well, that's true, but there was no MPAA in 1960. That didn't happen until 68. At this point, it was still under the production code, and either a movie was allowed to be released or it wasn't, and it was allowed to be released, so there was no letter rating. Later, it was re-rated to be a mature audiences film, which is
my 7-year-old is really mature for his age.
It was basically equivalent to the PG rating that would come along later once they actually finalized the rating system. Before then, they added a PG-13 in 7, whenever Temple of Doom came out. But then in the 80s, it was re-rated to R because there was controversy at the time of other films having PG ratings but having a fair amount of violence, and so it was re-rated, I guess, just to dispel controversy. But I don't think that it deserves it, even maybe compared to other films around the time or a bit later. If you look at something like The Longest Day. The Longest Day is much more violent than this. You see lots of people get shot. It's not violent in like a Saving Private Ryan level way, the way we later see D-Day depicted, but it's much more violent than this is.
Oh yeah.
And
Like, I would say there's almost no violence. Almost.
No, most of it is tension, and most of the violence is not visual anyway. So,
Well, like, because
it's implied violence.
Yeah, so the implied would be whenever he attacks the lady in the shower. The only time we see direct violence is the when he stabs the detective. But then there's the scuffle in the office, and that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. Is I love that scene. And I love that scene for the reasons is that dude gets hit in the head and it looks like it knocks him out, but all it does is like stun him for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is what would really happen, because what he hits him with is not like a solid brick. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's caving the guy's skull in. Like, no, like you hitting him, it's just going to be like a medium impact. It's going to take him like a moment to kind of recover his equilibrium. And then he's going to be right back on your ass. And that is what we get. So I approve.
He does give up the sneakiness after not super long, though, where he's talking to Norman and then gets more and more aggressive, and then eventually says, like, you got the $40,000, didn't you? And like that's what starts the fight. So like he totally loses his cool.
Like, wait a minute, I didn't know about no $40,000.
You're just supposed to be keeping him busy while she searches the house for the bomb.
Well, like that was didn't Norman put the $40,000, like all of her stuff, in the car when he pushed the car?
Yeah, but
in?
it was wrapped in the newspaper, and he didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, like so he didn't even know.
He never knew about the money, which is I guess supposed to be some kind of irony or something. But
irony,
or at least probably people teaching film courses will tell you that it's an example of irony, whether it is or not.
I think it would only be real irony if he was like in a need for money.
Well, I guess in a way he's will eventually be in a need for money if his business totally fails. But
that's if his business totally fails. Now, I'm saying like in the context of what we're given.
Yeah, I mean the business is failing. No one's staying, but we don't know what his money situation is.
Exactly. It's like it's that kind of vagueness where anyone in general would need money, but he's not in a pinch where he's like, oh, I gotta have money. Like he's not. He doesn't seem to be doing that.
I guess supposedly another part of the rating is the kind of like perviness of it, but there's not that much of that either, and maybe adult situations like a guy dressed like a woman.
Dude looks like a lady.
Yes, well. So this may seem like an odd question to ask about a film such as this. We've run across this from time to time, but everything is still judged individually, not based on its importance or legend or those kinds of things. So we still have to say, so how do we feel about Stars?
I'm going to give it a 3. Like there's other movies he's made that I'm like, this is good. And this is not one of them that really tickles my fancy.
I do enjoy it.
I don't think it's
respect
bad.
It. And there are things that I like in all parts of it. But just in the like fear suspense kind of way, which we'll get to the specific fearness of it in a minute. But there are other Hitchcock movies that do that to me more. Like, like Rope.
Rear Window.
Rear Window is suspenseful, and there are things to be scared of. So there's not really things to be scared of really until the very end, but there's a lot of suspense and a lot of tension and a lot of what you expect from Hitchcock making a film. But in Rope, the whole thing is suspense. Like it's wall to wall suspense, and it's like it does it to me every time that I watch it. Still, there's still just like I notice every so often that I haven't been breathing as deeply as I should for a little while, and so I have to remedy that. I think just for like straight scariness, the birds is more frightening on a consistent basis, just in like a horror sort of way, despite the DVD case for this saying Hitchcock's scariest film. I don't think that that's true. And which I thought when I saw that, I was like, is that the birds though? Don't people think that the birds is scary? Because mostly it's just like dramatic and suspenseful. There's just a lot of like characters talking to each other and stuff. There's not a lot of like, oh, that's hard to look at, or things like that. The way that there are in some other Hitchcock movies. Even Vertigo has a number of frightening moments and pretty much wall-to-wall suspense, except for a couple of weird scenes. I think because otherwise I would be sort of judging it based on subsequent things, which doesn't seem fair. I think I have to go a little bit higher, so I think I'll say 4, but it's just kind of barely. And it's not to say that it shouldn't be, respected as one of the great films and be in the Library of Congress and all that. But also all of the like psychoanalysis stuff at the end is like bogus, because like that's like there are various psychological conditions that have a sort of multiple personality or like overriding aspects taking over in like stressful moments and things, kind of. But there's no such thing as like real split personality the way that it is in all kinds of movies, including this. Like there's no like second person living inside you. Like that's not a real thing that happens. The closest thing to the way that it's kind of thought of in movies is dissociative personality disorder, and it's really, really, really rare and still doesn't really work like that. So all of that is bogus. So the whole justification for the rest of the story is sort of the like you only use 10% of your brain level, like not true science kind of stuff.
I only use 10% of my brain. How about you? Okay.
This is another case where something was not really well received critically, but then it became popular, and so then critics went back to take a look at it and, and reassessed, and then it became important.
I always kind of hate stuff like that, where it just ends up being bandwagoning. I don't like this thing. Well, I haven't even seen it, but I don't like it either. And then it just spreads. It's like, well, did you pay attention when you watched it, or were you just on your phone the whole time? Give me a second. I have to check my Instagram on that. Wait a minute. Just watch the movie, and then tell me what you think after you've watched the movie.
So what about scariness?
It is not scary at all. Like, it's creepy.
It's creepy.
As much as a dude peeping on women at a hotel is creepy. But that's really as far as I can go on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's creepy. I'm worried about the boyfriend and the sister getting caught and murdered by Norman because they're sneaking around. But,
sneaking around.
So what? I get. So what is not scary at all? Is that one scariness? Is that how we're doing this? Or,
see, like,
I can't remember last year. Did we allow zero scariness? Or
like, if we did allow zero scariness, this is zero scariness. But if we're not allowing zero scariness, then that means one means it's not scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't. This didn't frighten me, like in the least.
I guess whatever we're saying is the lowest amount of scariness. Like, I guess I'll agree with that too, because suspense and tension is not the same as scary.
Agreed.
So, which, mostly I expect suspense from Hitchcock more than, scary me to death. I suppose people were, maybe scared at the time, but maybe not. There are, like reports of people throwing up and running up and down the aisles and showings of Poltergeist and Exorcist and things. I don't know how true any of those stories are either. So
Someone was paid to do it.
all right, so you're gonna go in, you're gonna sit for like 30 minutes, and then you're just gonna throw up on everything, and then you're gonna get money.
And when Phoenix shoots that one guy on the train, we just need you to leave.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about Psycho. It's probably angry tweets coming at us right now because we don't think that it's...
I can't believe you don't think Psycho's like the best movie ever. Like, bro, calm down. Calm down. Calm the calamity that is your memories. And follow us on Twitter. Links in the description. Like and subscribe. And check the walls in hotels for holes that people could peep at you from.
Yeah.
Maybe take like some sticky notes with you, a little pad of sticky notes, and like put them over.
He changes the sheets all the time, but I guess no spare shower curtains around.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Later.
According to this, Janet Leigh was so affected by the shower scene that she never took showers anymore unless she absolutely had to.